Order the Committee of the Whole meeting. Deputy Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Orth?
Here.
Trustee Whitaker?
Here.
Trustee Fowler?
Here.
Trustee Gallen?
Here.
Trustee Yedis?
Here.
Trustee Elfman?
Here.
President Mendrick?
Here. The first order of business always on our agenda is the public comment section. We ask anyone who would like to speak to approach the podium, say your name and your address. I will say if any of you are here to talk about item number 6 on the agenda, which is the car wash conversation, you would have a chance to make those comments when we discuss that. I would love for us all to hear about the plan, talk about it, and then take your public comment if any of you are here for that. Otherwise, if you'd like to make a comment now, you're certainly welcome to, if anybody would like to approach the podium. Okay, great. Let's move on then. The next order of business is consideration of a request from Bloomfield Development for architectural revisions to the approved planned unit development at 405 Central Avenue. Jim, are you doing the presentation? Yeah. Okay. Would you like to give us some general overview of your request tonight, please?
Tracy, did you approve the minutes?
Sorry. 1 second. I couldn't start this year out any different than I ended last year. I skipped an item, the approval of the regular and closed session meetings minutes for December 2nd, 2025. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes, please.
And a second? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Jim, join us back at the podium, please.
Did we be sworn in public or no? Nice to see you guys again. I would take issue with the word revisions to the approved plans because these are, in my opinion, very insignificant and required after, it's been about 4.5 months since we were here last time, and we've been working really hard with our consultants and our engineers and architects. And in that process of spending all that money with them and going through the code requirements, and you learn a lot. And we've learned a lot, all in an effort to make the building better. And so the few things, there's only really a couple things we can show. The building is 99.5% the same as presented before. Same number of floors, same number of units, same number of parking spaces, same footprint, same brick and masonry construction, same color palette. Basically, we found out that the windows, as drawn by the architect initially, were 4 foot by 8 foot casement windows, and that's a sheet of plywood or a sheet of drywall. You can imagine how big that is. A casement window, it's ridiculous. There's one company that could do it, a European company, but there's a few problems. They open in, the screens are on the outside, which ruins the look of the building. As soon as the screen gets dirty, all the glass looks dirty. And imagine someone in our demographic, buyer demographic, case opening at 4 foot window. So we went to an American manufacturer, which has a normal 3 foot wide casement, which we're normally seeing. So the window openings in the building didn't change, just the way we configured the windows changed. Same colors, everything else. And that's reflected on the last page of this. We did a new elevation. If you go to the, sorry, Melissa, the last page. It's not loading really, but there's should be on top of each other 2 renders.
I think back one.
Go back one, Melissa. I think
No,
this is
forward one.
This is what's in our board packet, though, right?
No, I don't think you got, this is the new, comparing the, there's no difference, there's very little difference is my
Okay.
point. And I can hand you, I have 5 copies of this.
Yeah, we don't have, what was in the board packet doesn't have your second
Yeah.
modification.
I did another rendering just to show the window configuration slightly different. It's required. I mean, there's really no other way around that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you said you have 5 of those?
Yes, I can give you
Would
right
you
now.
mind,
Sure.
Tamara?
I don't know why.
Thank you.
It's the same thing on the screen, except the last page didn't have the 2 pictures together. I don't know why it didn't load that way, Melissa, but,
The one in the packet does not have a second picture.
okay. I printed, anyways, it shows the elevation, the rendering of the elevation showing it's pretty much the same thing. If you want to talk, we can talk about a few revisions that are on the different elevations of the building. Really, the main one is on the north side, we eliminated some windows that are in closets, because our marketing team in that property says you're going to ruin the closet, you're going to have trouble selling the units if you remove a whole wall with a window. People don't like windows in closets for a lot of reasons. Privacy, the light on the clothes, whatever. And plus, you can't hang clothes in a condo. There's only a few walls to hang clothes. So we eliminated windows on the north side where the closets were. We made a window smaller in the shower. We had a window in the shower. We made it smaller because the architect originally drew it the full height of the shower, which is going to be a problem. And the west elevation, we removed 2 windows in the middle on the bottom for structural integrity. Like we kind of need more structure for the building, and that's where we decided in architectural doing some landscaping, some trees right there, anyways, in the middle. Plus, it looked a little monotonous all across the front, the exact same thing. So, And the other thing really to point out is the elevator. The way the architect originally had it in the preliminary drawings we went through in the summer, the elevator door and the roof opened up to the roof. And so the elements are hitting that door, and it became a concern of how the water and the snow and the ice and the cold are going to go right down that shaft. So they built a vestibule, so that way it's much more secure, weatherproofing and for the water. And one other thing in the back alley, I'm sorry, and we added some windows actually in the alley side, but we removed the door in the back on the alley side. That was to the storage. Because number one, for security reasons. Number two, that's where the gas meters have to go. We have a bank of gas meters, and that's the only place you can go. So a door was removed in the back corner in the alley. So.
It looks to me like the south elevation has a bit of a change in the windows, but nothing significant there.
Let me see here.
At least what you just handed me, they look different.
You took my copy, so you'll go to the,
Here.
yeah, up there, pull it up there.
See.
The south elevation?
The south
you go.
elevation, it looks like it's gone from a 4-pane to a 3-pane on the,
Yeah, those are all
Singles.
originally 4-foot wide casements.
Oh,
So,
okay.
those are just impossible to
Yeah.
get in this country that open
Got
with
it.
the screen on the correct side. So anything that was a 4-foot wide casement had to be divided into 3. The window opening is the same, it's just 3 instead of 2.
okay.
And you can kind of see what that looks like in the rendering, the first
Mm-hmm.
page of the packet you have there.
Patrick, do you or Steve want to provide any input before I ask the board about their views on this at this point?
No, I think we covered it in the staff memo. There's some minor little stuff that frankly, if that were the only changes, like some light fixtures, exterior light fixtures just got swapped out. We didn't think there was any, they were same quality of level of lighting and whatnot. A lot of little things, which if they were only those, frankly, we wouldn't actually bring them back to the village board. So no, not a lot to add.
Okay.
So this is a little unusual that you don't see these come back like this. And as Steve and I looked at this, we thought the adjustments, rather than revisions, were enough that it warranted another review by the body that approved it. So we brought this forward to you as a first group that met to take a look and say, do you think these are de minimis and they're substantially compliant with the initially approved plan? And would the board like to take action to say we're fine with it as the way it is? Or would you like to ask the Architectural Commission to look at this? And if you do, you've got 2 options. Architectural Commission, review this, make a final decision, or Architectural Commission, look at this and return it to us for final decision.
Okay. My opinion on that, gentlemen, is that I would prefer that this go back to architecture. I'm not keen on the precedent of us making decisions when we have an architecture board to review these things. So I would be comfortable giving them final permission to make the changes and move forward, but
Could I make one comment?
yeah, of course.
That might delay the project a few months because the permitting would be held up, I believe, right, Steve, in terms of the would the permitting be held up until that's all through? And I think the architectural is not for another 2 months, maybe, the next time?
No, not, we actually have asked architecture if they could get it onto their next agenda, which they have agreed to,
February 23rd,
yeah,
we have a meeting set up, Jim.
So
if the board
February?
agree,
February 23rd, yeah.
yeah, if the board decides to go that way, then we've made accommodations for that, knowing that, you know, time is money for you, so.
One more comment.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
sorry. I'm not sure what they could say if they want us to go back to a 4-foot wide window. It's going to ruin the look of the building. The screens would be on the outside. There's no other way to do it, and that would look dirty in 6 months. The whole building on that, as you drive by, is going to look terrible. I'm not sure what the option would be, except to go to the division of 3, how we did it for the American companies. The door has to be moved for the gas meters. Like, there's really no other, these are necessary changes. They're not done because we thought it'd look better or look worse. I mean, we're just trying to improve the building. So that's why I'm not sure what the options are at my point. If they came back and said, add that back in, I'd be like, where the gas meter is going to go, you know,
Okay,
that kind of stuff.
go ahead, Tom.
I'm just going to give you my 2 cents worth. I think I need to preface this with, we respect the Architectural Commission. We appreciate everything that they do. I personally don't think that the changes are that substantial that the Architectural Commission needs to go back and take a look. I think that what they're doing, really, if you took a quick look, you really wouldn't even be able to tell the change. And I would recommend approving it.
I tend to agree here. This is a materiality thing, and architecture looks at the broad scope and does it fit? And these are nits. These aren't the broad scope things. We're like, oh, I don't. We shouldn't have balconies there. No, he's putting a vestibule and changing a little bit of the craft of the windows. Those are details that I don't think. Tracy, I don't like your doorknob on your house. Can you change it? You know, like, we can't. This is. I don't think that's the intention of the architectural committee. If they went back to them, if that's the way you want to do it and send it back, that's fine. But I think it's kind of a nit, in my opinion, to the overall project, because it doesn't change. To Tom's point, if you had not told me where the changes were and we did a little I Spy, I bet a lot of us would not even notice the difference, in my opinion.
Okay.
I agree with Trustee Fowler and Trustee Tom, because I think, you know, while I respect everything the Architectural Committee does and as liaison, I'm at all those meetings, and they do a fantastic job, but I think when you look at this, like with the change because of the gas meters have to go where the gas meters have to go. So that change has to be made. And with the issue with the screens and the other stuff, that makes total sense. So I think it's minimal, and I think not to delay the project. And I think, again, anyone that just looks at this will probably look at the original and this and say, well, unless you pointed it out, they may not even notice it. So I would be in agreement with the other 2 trustees that we approve it tonight and not, you know, have you go through more, you know.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I agree with President Mendrick. I don't have any problems with these plans at all, but I think it should just go back to the committee to look at it and to do what they do. This is what they do. I mean, those are my thoughts. If we're voting on it, if it comes and we decide we're voting on it, I don't have a problem. But I think it should go to the committee.
There's also the precedent of sending things to the committee when it's de minimis for other developments in the neighborhood, in the community in the future. You know, developers are going to think we have to go back every single time we change a window opening or change a, you know, necessary thing that's required by code. That's another precedent issue.
Jim, with all due respect, this is the first major development in this community in a long time, and I'm not terribly comfortable setting the precedent of not doing that, but I will defer to the remainder of the trustees and see where we get to.
I mean, I was just going to, I'm torn on this because I want to give power to our commissions and committees to do their job, right? But I'm with Trustee Gallen as well. I mean, if we're going to do this tonight, I'm not going to hold it up either. For me, the big thing, I don't want to hold up the project moving along as well. But it would move it back, 3 weeks basically if we waited until architecture. Mm-hmm. So either way, I think it's a win-win. But at the end of the day, I don't want to take power away from those committees and commissions either. So Best way I can say is I'm hedging both sides, I guess.
Well, I guess that leaves me. I do appreciate the explanation, and I understand that there's some evolution during the process here. My biggest concern is really about the process and making sure that we value the architecture committee. But I'm torn. Having now seen some more of the renderings, I do see less of a difference. The vestibule is my main concern. But I think in some, I understand that some changes are necessary, but I sort of lean towards sending it back to the architecture committee to make their final decisions.
That's the biggest change.
Mr. Jones, do you have anything you'd like to advise us here?
Procedurally, turn the mic on, sorry. Procedurally, the board can make a motion to direct it, or which is probably the best option at this point. And if that fails, then we could entertain a motion to approve directly or deny.
If it went to architectural, would it go back to you afterwards? No.
What we're proposing here is that architecture will look at it. If they approve it, you move forward. It doesn't have to come back here. We're giving them the power to make that decision, assuming that that's where we get to. So it's February 23rd. Okay, does anyone want to make a motion? You do need a vote, right, at this point?
It would be the right thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the changes that they've submitted. While I do respect everything the architectural committee does, I don't think that these have to go back to them, and I don't think we're setting a bad precedent, so I would make a motion that we approve the changes he submitted tonight so you can move forward with this project and get it going.
Second?
Okay, Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen? Yes. Trustee Yedis?
Yes.
Trustee Elfman? Yes. Motion carries.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're set. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5 on the agenda is discussion of the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 goals and objectives. And this is a bit of a summary document of some conversations this board has had over the last several months. And as we move into the budget process, I think Patrick's asking us to reaffirm that these are priorities for us and make sure we have the things on the list, right?
Thank you very much. There's nothing left for me.
Good. I knew it wasn't going to take 30 minutes.
No, and this is kind of, for us, a little bit of the favorite part of the budget process, because it's that time when we've started to distill the information we've been hearing from the board for the past 6 months or so, the projects that you're interested in, and really taking out the goals that we've been coming up with and working with staff to formulate a plan on how we can move some of these things forward. So I'll just, for the audience here, I'll just go through the items that are on the goals list. Every year I get a couple questions about goals and objectives and what belongs on the list versus what just gets programmed in the budget. How do we decide? And it's a little bit of a dealer's choice. Generally, these goals and objectives for me get on the list if they're of community-wide interest. For example, if we replace windows in one of our facilities, probably not community-wide interest. But if we're doing a sidewalk project on Bosworth, that's got a bigger importance, and that's something we put on goals and objectives. So for this year, in the order, we've got the Centennial Celebration. It's our 100-year anniversary. It is a community-wide interest project, and we like to program money for that process. We do have an objective to reaching out and getting some sponsorships and some help with this program. But even with that, if we have $500 donated, we still have to book as an expense the $500 we spend. So we would need to program those funds in the budget. I don't know exactly what that number is, but within the next month or so, we'll probably have a better idea on what that amount is. The library expansion project, this is something we've been working on for a little while. The Winnetka Northfield Library District, the branch here, they've asked to expand to about 10 to 13,000 usable square feet of space, roughly doubling their available space. because they're out of space. And if you've been in the library, you've seen that it is pretty well packed, and the district does an amazing job using every square inch of space up to stacking books in the dumbwaiter because they don't have extra space for things. So we've engaged a consultant. That consultant's helping us as an architect, working through that process, and we will program funds for where we think we'll be in that process during the year, next year, up to the point of what we call phase 3, where we put it out to bid. We don't know what that amount is yet, so it won't be programmed in the budget, but we'll come back to you later in the budget cycle once we reach that design phase with an estimated cost and ask you to amend the budget if you're approving the project moving forward. Enhanced economic development. If there's one thing other than the library that I've heard a lot about from this group is economic development initiatives. And really it has to do with business attraction and retention is the reason we're doing this. And we've got plans that Steve and I have put together for really increasing our focus in this area, both our outreach to businesses and new businesses, and participating in economic development events, and trying to make it easier for new businesses to start in town and knowing how to follow that process. We'll have a number plugged in for what that will be if that remains one of the goals to move this forward. Part and parcel with that is working at enhancing our resident outreach. And sorry, let me move back up to economic development. One of those pieces, for those who may have a business in town, we produced our first business newsletter not that long ago. It was released it last week. And that is just an example of our effort of trying to engage the business community and put resources out there. Similarly, again, part and parcel, enhanced resident outreach. We've done a lot of work to expand our email database for being able to do outreach to residents. That's both for emergency contacts as well as our routine messaging about what's happening in the village. This item includes us enhancing our email distribution service, expanding that database even more than what we have now, and working on ways through outreach with our government partners, our sister governments, to get more outreach to the residents. I've spoken with the Park District and 2 school boards who have agreed to work with us on a cooperative joint newsletter, a print mailed newsletter to the community, where we can each put out the highlights of what we're doing and get that to every household in the village. That is part of this goals and objective for the coming budget year. Skokie Valley Trail. I don't know if you've been keeping score about how many years this has been on our goals and objectives list, but it remains there because we are tenacious about trying to get this done. For those of you who are curious, the holdup right now is there's several portions of the trail as planned that run through property of ComEd. And ComEd has expressed concerns about that trail and the proximity to some of their equipment. So we're into a bit of a back and forth battle about, we are saying that they could be located here. ComEd is saying, no, not there. Talk to Union Pacific, who has some rail lines in that immediate area also. So this year's goal is to get that done and resolved and start the planning phase for actually drawing where the trail is going to be. We have grant funds to help with this project, and the plan is to get it fully planned out so we can start construction. Sustainability initiatives, this is something that also I've heard from the board is a matter of importance. One of the items we have listed here is electric vehicle charging stations. We're pursuing grants for that, and there are a couple other items that we're trying to do to improve that sustainability. I link in with the sustainability issues, things like working forward at trying to do our sidewalk interconnects. It's enhancing the walkability of the village. It ties in. And we've got a couple of sidewalk projects planned that will be coming up in the budget. And finally on the list is the Orchard public parking. Assuming that the board approves an item on the village board agenda later tonight, one of the goals is to bring that parking lot on the north side of Orchard in where the Eden's on-ramp is as a public parking lot to the community. And I've had good conversations with the 2 private landowners in that area who are interested in master planning that lot with us to see if we can maximize the amount of parking spaces and have cross-access easements to make that work. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about those items or other items that you think I may have missed.
So one thing that I've been thinking about, and I don't know how we get this necessarily put into the budget or if it's something other people are interested in, but these crosswalk projects seem to take a long time and a lot of dollars to get done. There's definitely a need for one on Sunset Ridge Road to get over to the junior high there. We potentially have a park coming in on North Hap Road at some point. There's probably gonna need to be one up in that direction. Is that something we wanna add in at some point of, I don't know if it's just holding funds or getting the process started, or as somebody somewhat newer to this process, what's our best method to kind of put a placeholder that we can start maybe over a certain time period, try to get these crosswalks put in much faster than some of the other ones in the past?
Probably the fastest way to do it is pick locations that are not on another agency's property, but we've got, what I would recommend we do, and we can do this as part of the capital discussion, is look at the work done by the sidewalk committee at areas where they've said, here's some connections that we need, and see if those are areas where it would be actually helpful to have a rapid flashing beacon. I believe that's what you're talking about for the push button activated.
At this point, anything in a lot of places, just to let people know that there's people crossing, essentially.
Absolutely. So those projects are, as you mentioned, take some time, but it's something that hopefully we could get done in a budget year or so. And we're still working for the one on Bosworth right now and hope to have that. We have the permit comments done, and now we're working on equipment purchase. So if there's a consensus of the group, you would like to see us try to find ways to make that happen, just let me know.
Well, and to add to what you're talking about, I talked to Patrick earlier today about this when we were going through our Tuesday review, and it seems what keeps happening is as we submit everything, in the first project that I was heavily involved in, you know, it took a long time, we got a lot of work done, we got the cost way down, which is huge, but the problem is the county continues to seem to change the rules in the middle of the game. So when you submit something, then all of a sudden they say, oh no, now this sign's got to be this size, and so then they turn it back over to you, and that's one of the things that's happening on the Bosworth one now, is the signage got changed. So they keep doing that, and then a lot of times too, when they go through the review process, the same person doesn't review it when it goes back. So if you reviewed it the first time and you worked for the county, now this engineer reviews it the second time, and he's got different changes, then Trustee Fowler is the third review. So what I've learned in going through this with previous administration and our current, you know, county people is it's never ending, and they keep changing it. So the cost of it isn't that bad. It's that they keep changing the rules in the middle of the game. So it's very frustrating, you know, having been through this now we're on the second one, and it is. And it's a safety issue, and I don't get it why they don't, you know, want to help us move this along much faster. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So is there any agreement that we want to try to put this on the priority list, figure out how to, or identify through maybe Trustee Gallen and Trustee Whitaker going back to the sidewalk committee report, and like obviously the pocket park that we're talking about at south of Temple Jeremiah isn't there yet, but it's something maybe we want to think about for sure, and get coordinated with the park district on when they would do that work. But do we want to take another look? Can I ask you two to take another look at the sidewalk committee? I know we had a priority list.
Crosswalk, there are a few crosswalks on it. I actually talked to Patrick about this yesterday, so I agree with you. Yeah, we're on the same page. So absolutely, it's already been figured out which ones are of high priority. So
Okay.
our discussion was, I wasn't sure that, we weren't sure that it needed to be on this sheet, but absolutely, put it on the sheet. I'm happy to do that.
Let me see, I'll try to build it in the capital plan. When we do the capital discussion, this year it's going to be listed out of all the kind of significant projects in there, non-reoccurring, and we'll try to see if we've got room to make that happen.
Well, as far as the pocket park goes, I was at the meeting last night, and unfortunately, they did not get the grant. So the grant wasn't secured, so now that's going to delay or change possibly, depending on how the referendum goes, whether or not that gets built. They have all the plans for it, but that could be delayed because of funding. And then if you look at the sidewalk situation over there is no sidewalk on the west side of Hap Road. So is the crossing going to be for where you cross you know, from a road to that sidewalk, but there is no real crossing. The sidewalk's on the east side. So do we need a beacon there? Perhaps, but where would you put it?
The other thing I'm trying to think about as well, as we talk Skokie Valley Trail, that's gonna need some entrances as well, which will probably have crosswalks attached to it at some point, right? Like, so it's just trying to think longer term of not necessarily projects that might even get done in this budget cycle, but just how do we kind of incorporate this into the long term?
Well, and that's what I was going to say with the work that was done on the sidewalk committee and the plan that was presented. I mean, I kind of see that as our 2040 plan of the sidewalks here in Northfield, and I think that should really be the guiding force as to prioritizing what needs to be, you know, replaced and when. So, just my 2 cents.
And I think isn't, as part of the Skokie Valley Trail, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of those beacon crossings they installed on Winnetka Avenue where it would cross by near the fire station would be a part of that budget for the Skokie Valley Trail, correct?
That's included in the project scope.
Right. So that one we wouldn't have to budget for, and there's probably maybe several other crossings depending. I know Willow Road where it crosses, there's already traffic light there, so we wouldn't need anything there, but.
Okay, I think the direction here is let's go back and revisit the sidewalk plan. Let's think about, it sounds like there's at least one that we need to give more consideration to. What's the second one?
Oh,
The first one is Sunset Ridge Road, what?
the Hap Road.
North Hap at the tennis
By
club.
By the park, yeah.
Yeah, and if you saw on the agenda, the park board will be here at the next meeting to present. They may talk about the fact that they didn't get that grant, and that may influence a little bit of what we do with that, but let's put it on our list.
If you're going to put a beacon over there, I would do it at the north end of Temple Jeremiah, where what is that, South Fork? South Fork. Southgate, because that's the direction the kids from that area will be coming across. They're not going to be walking south on Hap Road. They'd just be cutting across there. I see them on their bikes and walking there already.
Yeah. Is there
I would
anything
just
else?
say the report is on the village website, so you guys can take a look at it.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. Did you get what you needed from us?
Absolutely, thank you.
All right. Okay, item number 6 is the consideration of a request for the Plan and Zoning Commission to consider automatic car washes as an allowed use in the B1 district. Patrick, you and Steve, who's going to present on this?
Sure. With Steve's permission, I'll just kind of tee this up a little bit. This is my second thing that you often don't see coming your way, but Steve and I talked about approaching it in this.
Can I just, I meant to do one thing before we get into this. I do think it's appropriate to recognize Teddy Kossoff, who has had his business in Northfield for 50 years, 50-plus years, and is finally retiring, and that's what's prompting this conversation. So I should have done that right out of the gate, but Teddy has been a long, long supporter of Northfield, and we thank him for being here for as long as he has. With that, I'll turn it back over to you. Sorry.
Sure. So what we have is the site, the Kossoff site, that they've been working on, trying to come up with plans for that for 4 to 6 months now. And the developer had come forward to us with a concept, and a couple of them we've rejected outright because of the recognized impact to the neighborhood. The current one is on the south half of the parcel to have a coffee shop with, or a coffee location with drive-through. That's already a special use within that zoning district, so that would go through a process. But the north half of the parcel, they're proposing to put in an automatic car wash. An automatic car wash is not listed in your table of uses in the code, which means that effectively it's prohibited because it's not listed as a use. So the only way to get it as a use is to go through a text amendment by approaching the Plan and Zoning Commission. That takes time, money, preparing things, and then if a text amendment's granted by or recommended by the commission, it comes to the board adopts a code change, and then the user has to go apply for a special use or permitted use, depending on what the Plan and Zoning and Village Board decide. So what we're not here tonight for is considering a special use because it's not allowed by text amendment. But the board has previously talked to us about trying to change a little bit of our reputation about being a little bit more friendly toward development than we have been in the past. So this is a case where I saw an opportunity to take the temperature, if you will, of the village board on the concept of an automatic car wash. Not this one in particular, but for that zoning district, is this something that by right, as soon as you hear that, you're like, ugh, no. If your initial reaction is, and I was trying to think of a use that the board would have a reaction to and go, no, we don't want that. And the only thing I can think of is like a hookah lounge. If somebody wanted to bring in a hookah lounge and you heard that and said, oh my gosh, no, that would not be appropriate for that area. If you're getting that reaction, it would help me to know, because we can share that information with the developer and they can decide then if they still want to move forward to the Plan and Zoning Commission on an application for a text amendment. They have the right to go be heard on this text amendment. I'm just trying to get an opinion of, if this was the perfect automatic car wash, is this something the board would go, you know what, we would at least consider it. If you're into the we would consider it mode, it's helpful for us to know that. I don't need nor want to vote tonight. It's really just kind of a straw poll or an idea of what the board's thought is. And that's why this is a bit different than what you normally see from us. We're usually looking for hard and fast. This is really just taking your temperature on the issue.
Do you have, Patrick or Steve, any details on said car wash? Because there are multitude of car washes, right? There are the kinds that have the vacuums sitting outside where you line up your car and you vacuum it yourself. There's the car washes where you go into an enclosed building and come out. Like, do we have any sort of idea of what kind of car wash they're proposing?
We have an idea of this current concept, and I don't want to get too far into that, but just to give you an idea of what the possibilities are. Because I can tell you when I first heard about this, I was in the, no, I don't think so. But after I've heard the comments of what they're considering, well, maybe. Noise, almost always a concern because of the blowers in that service and the running of the machines. Also the vacuums that cause that, often they'll centralize a vac, but that's still a lot of noise. The developer is aware of that. They've located in many other areas adjacent to residential. They have ways to deal with that that they've got approved in other locations. I'll give you one example. The outside vacuums that often have a negative appearance to people. Aesthetically, they're not pleasing, and they tend to be loud. There is the concept of enclosing that in a building. So you don't see those exposed vacuums, you don't hear that noise, in a way to be more friendly in the neighborhood and also be aesthetically pleasing. So when you think about the car wash, if you hear things that are possible that make you less opposed, enough to let the commission go through and consider what the options could be, it's what we would love to know. And I'm not presupposing this. The board could come in and say, you know what? We've been recommended by the commission to approve an automatic car wash, but the special use doesn't pass because the developer didn't go far enough to mitigate concerns. It's truly just a gating step of, is this something that you would consider, yes or no?
And any action of this sort would only make the car wash possible in that district, right? Or just that location? Just for everybody here, I just want to be clear on that.
What the developer would be seeking is an amendment to the B1 zoning district. So that's a fairly small district just on Waukegan Road.
Right. Okay.
I'll step in here, Tracy. I think, to Patrick's point, technology continues to change. You think about old car washes, I'm totally with you. But it has changed pretty materially. They've got doors that come up and down so that the blowers are going off while the door is down. It pops up when the car goes out. That's facing the street, so all the noise is mitigated toward the street. I'm not saying I'm for it, but if somebody came in and gave me something compelling versus a vacant building there, and as we've seen, office use has changed, other uses have changed, I think we have to at least be open to the idea of listening. I'm willing to listen.
Okay.
Patrick, are there an example of this particular car wash somewhere in the region that we could look at? That you know that, is there one in Libertyville, is there one in, Zion? Is there someone near here that we could see what they're talking about with some of this, like what Todd's saying?
I believe you can go on the website for this. I believe you can go on the website for this particular developer and look at what they've done in other areas. I don't know that it'll get you the detail of what efforts they've made to mitigate issues. And of course, it's unique to the area where it's being placed. It's a group that is trying to expand in the area. They recognize there are other automatic car washes in the area, but they have a unique model, primarily membership-based. So they think they're new. And I'll give you a little bit quick example. When I was working in another community, there was an absolutely fantastic cupcake shop in downtown. Fantastic cupcakes. Somebody else came in to get a special use for a cupcake shop. And people were like, why board would you approve to have two shops 5 stores away? It wasn't our role to decide whether or not somebody had a good business model or not. It was our role to decide, is that use permissible or not? So this isn't quite a cupcake shop, but if you're in your head going, well, there's a couple of these in the area, that's really not the germane for your decision-making process. And Greg can jump in if I'm off on that.
You're on target.
Well, and I was also thinking more of a road trip to actually hear the sights and sounds, because I think that's what we're talking about more or less, is that the great concern is the sounds of the vacuum, the sights. So if there was one that we could actually, I mean, online, pictures with 1,000 words, but that isn't, I'm just saying for down the line, if we get any further on this.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Let's continue to see where trustees stand on this, and then we'll see where it goes from here. So does anybody else have a comment before I ask for public comment?
Tracy, I'm happy to jump in here.
Yep.
I'm very excited about the economic development that we're working on. But we've already heard from multiple residents who would be impacted by this through the emails we've received on the board. I've also received text messages and phone calls from neighbors immediately concerned about it.
Yep.
Personally, I want to be careful that our interest in economic development doesn't unintentionally dilute what B1 was intended for and designed to protect. For me, this is a key distinction it's not really about one site, it's about what we're comfortable with in opening up. I'm not opposed to having that conversation, but I want to be clear, once we do, this is not a one-off. And I'm not comfortable with this use in B1. In fact, I'd rather have a hookah lounge. And I'm not really comfortable approving this or wasting anyone's time sending it back to the zoning board if we're all in agreement that this proposal should not move forward.
Thank you.
I've got thoughts, but this is more of a question for the board about how we do these
Can you
things.
put your mic a little closer to you?
I
Thank
have
you.
some thoughts, but I have more of a question for the board on how we do these things. We always give our opinion before people in the audience tell us what they think. I don't know, it just seems backwards. I think if we have questions, we should ask questions now, but it just seems like it makes more sense to have the public comment, and then we can kind of talk about things that they've said. It's just my 2 cents in general about this.
Well, Ed, since you're the only one who hasn't weighed in yet.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry.
I'm going
Go ahead.
to violate what Matt just said. On my end of it, I think it's always worth having conversations. And again, I said earlier, we want to give some power to our committees and commissions, right? So I think there's something to be said for, do you let planning and zoning look at this, make all the determinations on the noise, on the car traffic, that's not the discussion we're having tonight. Tonight, the discussion is just, is this something that we're okay with planning and zoning ever looking at? I'm of the mindset, let them look, let them talk, and then go from there, right? And eventually it'll come back around to us, and we'll have to make a final decision, assuming they would go forward with it.
Right.
So I'm more of the mindset of kind of open for business of any sort we can find, right? Is this the best use? I don't know. Maybe there's something better that comes down the road. But I think just letting planning and zoning do their work is kind of the right direction, in my opinion. So.
Tom?
I have a lot of different thoughts on this. I think that, Andrew, what you said was great. I mean, there's so many different things to look at, and we want to grow our community and we want to bring new things in, but when does that start to hurt us? And we've got a lot of growing to do, and I think we're off to a great start. When I heard car wash, I did what I probably should have done was, God, there's 4 car washes in the immediate area. What do we need another one for? But I also think that, you know, I really struggle with, isn't there something better we could put in there than a car wash? And you've got somebody who wants to develop the property. It sounds really great to do, but ultimately, I think that everybody needs to be heard. And, you know, people should be able, whoever the developer is, wants to share their case with the P&Z and architectural eventually down the road, that's fine. But I also think we really have to listen to the residents, really, because the residents are the ones who elected us and put us up here. And the businesses didn't. And we support our businesses, but we also really have to support our residents.
Okay. On that note, I'm sure there are some
Tracy,
people.
I didn't
Oh,
get a
sorry.
chance
I
to
thought you
finish.
talked at the beginning. Okay.
No, that was more
Sorry.
about going on a field trip to see this. But no, I agree with everything that's been said. I think we have to listen to our residents. We are elected by them. We also want to propose businesses. Tom, I had the same feelings that you did about when I heard that they were going to potentially do a car wash. I'm like, yeah, everyone's got a right. I was involved with Patrick Brennan, went to 2 cupcakes across the street from each other in a previous community that we were both working in. And they both thrived and they did well, but again, the whole thing with the car wash is that my first reaction was, isn't there something else that could go in there that would be something that the residents are looking for, a restaurant, some other kind of, business. So again, you've got to be open, but at the same time, we have to listen to the residents. So I would just be hoping that they would come up with something different. But again, we'll have to listen to what the proposals are.
Okay. Now, would anybody like to, please state your name and your address and,
Scott Samuelson. I live on Dorena Drive, and I kind of butt up to Teddy Kossoff's. And I brought a little cheese card here that I was gonna read, but my handwriting's so bad I probably can't read it. So I'm gonna wing it, and which is dangerous. My major concern here is the traffic. We're gonna have a situation, Dutch Brothers, which is very popular, and it's similar to some of these new coffee places. They did a thing called 7 Brew in Naperville. They approved it, I think it's on Ogden Avenue, and they brought it in and they went, whoa, the traffic is backed up onto Ogden Avenue. Now the police have to be there because the site isn't big enough to accommodate it. So that's one of the considerations. Dutch Brothers probably would be as popular as 7 Brew. And we're in a situation, we're next to a school, we're next to a church, and now we're thinking of throwing in a car wash. This will be the 3rd car wash in a 2-mile stretch on Waukegan Road. Do we really need another one? I mean, I know people like their cars clean, but I don't know that we need a 3rd one. The other thing that I would like to say is, for Teddy Kossoff's, it's been great, it's been an institution there, but they've had issues. It's a flood zone there. When there's a storm, the water just piles up there, and the piping does not flow out across Waukegan like it should. There probably should be, and please keep this in mind for whoever comes in there, there should be a detention pond there, whether it's underground or above ground, I don't care. But I've spoke with representatives from Northfield, from Glenview, I spoke with IDOT. And one of the guys from IDOT told me, he goes, what happened to the detention pond? I go, what do you mean? He goes, if I were you, I'd ask, what happened to the detention pond? I don't know. He was implying that there should have been a detention pond there, but the records don't go back that far, and so no one could really find out what the original plans are. But I do know positively that it floods. Now you bring in a car wash, and I know they recycle a lot of their water, but that just adds more water to the area. And I'm thinking that, that's a problem. And then I have many questions. Is this going to be a right in, a right out? I would assume so, because if you're going to try to make a left there, that's going to be a real issue. Is this going to be a 2-lane Dutch Brothers? Because they have to, with the car wash, they have to stack cars, And with Dutch Brothers, they have a car drive-through, but they also have a walk-up. So now I would say, is the bank going to be compromised? They're parking with the extra. Is the school, they're going to be compromised? What are the hours? How late are these guys open? If you look across the country, no one really, it varies. Another issue that I think is very important, how many Dutch Brothers have you seen with an L car wash? Google it. There's maybe a couple in the United States. Dutch Brothers is out of Oregon, I believe. L Car Wash is out of Florida. They have one in Florida. I tried to make a couple phone calls today. I talked to the police. They said, yeah, it gets pretty busy. But nowhere could I find where those two were together on one single site. I just think that would be a traffic nightmare. And I think having that next to a school and a church, and depending on the hours. Lastly, I would say, what are they going to do for screening? Are they going to, because they're going to have lights up there. Now, the Northview Bank is just south of them, where this proposed building. Mm-hmm. They've been very accommodating. They've been great. They were supposed to have screening. The screening died, and then they were nice enough to put up some more, and they put covers on their lights. And I assume that these guys would do the same. But these are all considerations on what goes into this decision. So my most important thing in here is that really take a look at how these two line up with each other. Dutch Brothers would probably be great if you have the room and it can accommodate it. But putting them together, do we really want to add another car wash? I mean, how many of these do we really want? So those are my concerns, and I would be happy, to sit down with any of you guys if you want to contact me and, give you as much information as I know. But I know that it's kind of a, everyone's kind of in a, they don't want that backing up to them. And I know that Hedge Row, their water flows through Teddy's, and Dorena Drives flows through Teddy's. And I've tried to contact Teddy for the last year or two and say, Teddy, the pipes don't work. I will help pay to have these pipes cleaned out. He didn't care. He wanted out. And so, and there's also that issue of who's going to maintain those pipes, those drainage, and that area. And that's, that's down the line, but these are all things we have to look at before we approve whoever comes in there. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And rest assured, those are all issues that Plan and Zoning would take up before this went any further, if it ever does. So anybody else? Yeah, come on up, please. Just, again, state your name and address, please.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name's Tony Acuna Roeder, and I live at 2456 Hedge Row, which is the property immediately adjacent to Teddy Kossoff. And I'm also going to represent some of the neighbors. Many of them are here, so thanks for coming, but others are virtual. Yeah, we strongly and unambiguously are against the car wash. It's going to completely negatively impact the livability of that area, right? Just picture it. It's not just, did a very good job, Scott, with all of his points, but it's not just about the pollution related to the idling, but imagine, the chemicals and the grime floating through the mist, coming down on my children's sandbox, having to clean everything. It's going, like, who knows where that could go. It's about not just the noise of car alarms and idling engines and the blowers, but also, some guy vacuuming, blasting music, doing, who knows what, things that are like uncontrollable by a developer. So these are things that I think actually don't have full compensating controls to be able to mitigate livability issues. Plus, I'm not going to touch on the traffic and the safety. I think that was well covered before. So when we bought our properties, we depended on the definition of what B1 was, right? It's this community-oriented business zone that's designed to be a buffer and compatible with the residences that live along that area, right? It was not meant for high-volume, car-oriented businesses, because that would 100%, destroy the livability of what we're doing. So I like the discussion that you guys had, and I think the main point here is, are we willing to destroy the spirit of B1 and what, when we bought our properties, thought we were getting ourselves into? And is there not a better use for that property than just, taking sort of the first thing that comes, a car wash? I think I spoke to a developer who was nice enough to reach out to me, and I told him we oppose, but I think it's just probably highly more profitable for him, right? And he prefers that as a first option because it's so difficult to get approved. So very pro-business. I run a business myself, so we should definitely not want any empty buildings or anything like that. But I'm confident that with enough time and effort, we're going to be able to find something that meets the spirit of B1 that's been so thoughtfully crafted, right, with the table of, I think I counted about 80 uses. So that's our view. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Swift. I live at 2420 Dorina Drive, just also voicing...
Can you just, I'm
Sure.
sorry,
There
you go.
also
Thank you.
voicing my opposition to the consideration of adding a car wash to the definition of B1 zoning. I think for me, obviously the other residents stated a lot of the concerns, but one of them is just, for me, pollution. I think pollution into the groundwater of that area, the western waterway of the Chicago River, actually does really flow quite adjacent to that area. So groundwater pollution and air pollution, as well as the noise pollution that I think, people make claims about the levels and then the developer develops and leaves, has no control over upgrades to the, are we really as a board going to be able to go in and say, oh, your fans have now been upgraded to the newest vacuum? That wouldn't be something that would be able to be considered by the board down the line once the architecture plans are approved. And then I also think just safety issues related to parking lot loitering in a drive-through, and then to our residences as well as the adjacent schools. So those are my key concerns. And the changing definition, inking that within the B1 doesn't seem conducive to the community surrounding. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so where does this leave us? Do we want to move this forward and let Plan and Zoning consider it if the developer comes back with this as a use? Or do we want to just say right now, today, we're not interested in a car wash in the B1? I think those are our two options.
Well, I'll go out on the limb and say I'm not interested in a car wash in B1.
Okay? Anybody else want to jump in?
I agree. I'm not interested. So if it came back, I trust our commission. If it went back to them, I would, value their opinion. But at this point, I'm not looking forward to moving this.
Anybody else?
I'd like to just see what planning and zoning says. I'd like them to do their full analysis and bring it back to us, and we'll have a full record to decide on.
Yeah, that's where I sit on it, is I do want planning and zoning to, I hate to say, do these exercises, right? To kind of figure out what works there. I should say, in full disclosure, my kid went to the Montessori school in the summer there, so I'm well aware of that corner over there. So there will be impact there if something like this goes through. But at the end of the day, it's, to me, less about approving or not approving the property, more about let's let our commissions do the work that we kind of intend them to do as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only other thing is the consideration of, do we have the potential developer go through all this, and then at the end, we're probably going to say no anyway, so do we have the developer go through, and where do we stand legally? I guess because it's already not zoned for, legally we're okay, right?
Yeah, legally, the board has discretion to determine what uses are allowed as permitted uses or special uses. So this falls squarely within your legislative discretion. I don't think Patrick's asking for a yes or no for the developer tonight. This is more just taking the temperature so he can have that conversation after.
I would gather that the said developer might be listening to this proceeding, or certainly would refer back to the audio or video of it, and I'm imagining would go back and with his or her group of investors and decide whether this is something they want to move forward, given what they've heard tonight, not just from the residents, but from the board. I'd say this is a underwhelming yes, maybe, is what I'm hearing from everyone. So,
It's hard to assess.
yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because we all are imagining stuff in our heads.
Right.
Like, I can't,
Right.
I don't know what
Right.
I would be
Yeah.
considering, honestly.
Okay. Then I think we'll leave it to the developer to decide if they want to come back and take this through the process with plan and zoning. Okay?
Absolutely, and just as for the people in the audience, there will probably be, if this moves forward and the developer decides to proceed, and it gets positive recommendations, there are, I think, at least 4 opportunities for residents to comment on this. Tonight, when it's brought up with Planning Zoning Commission for a text amendment, the text amendment comes to the village board for approval, back to plan and zone for special use, and then if they plan and zone and the board adopt it as a special use versus permitted use, and if it is a special use, it comes back to the board for approval of the special use. So that's 5 opportunities for people to share their opinions.
And the Architectural Commission.
Oh, architecture, thank you.
And also opportunities for the board and all those commissions to make sure that the concerns of the residents are met as we continue to flush those out if it goes forward. Okay.
Yeah, I actually thought Scott might be sitting on the Plan and Zoning Commission based on the questions he had. It's pretty impressive.
Okay. So we will see if that comes back to us or not.
That's what we needed, thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for being here and for sharing your thoughts with us. Item number 7 is discussion of minimum road standards for the dedication of private lanes. Patrick, I assume this is you.
And now the evening gets really exciting. So this harkens back to probably this summer when we were getting some outreach from some residents who live on private lanes. And we were starting the process, and we'd done outreach to, we were having a road analysis done. And we offered those private lanes to let us come through, do a road analysis to get their condition survey. And a couple of residents in the 2 years I've been here have called and said, hey, you know, I'm on a private lane, don't know why we have to plow our own lane, ask questions, and invariably it circles back to the question of, well, would the village take ownership of our street, and if so, how would that happen? And we really don't have a policy around that or any procedures to consider such requests. So I brought this to the board and the committee of the whole meeting previously, said we'd circle back to it after we had a chance to put some potential standards together for your consideration. So in your board packet, the request for committee action listed a number of bullet points that were developed by looking at our current subdivision standards. So if we had a new parcel of land and somebody wanted to build a brand new street in town as part of a subdivision, we have a set of standards that that street must be built to. So we combed through those standards to look at the things that would most likely be applicable if somebody wanted to transfer in a street and the board would accept dedication. And ultimately, we're trying to set conditions that ensure that you don't buy a car with 200,000 miles on it knowing you got to put an engine in it right away versus something that's in good condition that we take on as an asset and maintain for a while, recognizing that over time we're going to have to do improvements. So as the committee prefers, I can step through these standards one by one and ask your opinion, or I can open the floor to you to say, are there things here that you saw that you thought were either not enough or too much? So it looks like you'd like me to keep talking.
No, Patrick, I think you did a really nice job here in sort of putting together what I think we talked about at Committee of the Whole. And the onus, it gives these the people living on Lane, something to consider. I like what you put together, and at least we have something that you can go back to people with. I generally like it.
I agree. I think it's good. I would say be over-inclusive on this stuff because the last bullet point is the village can waive any of the conditions. So be over-inclusive about it, have it as a guideline, and then we can kind of go on a case-by-case basis if there are things that don't need to be there in the future for a particular lane or whatever. So that would be my suggestion on it. Any of the options, I'd say yes. Keep all the options in there.
I would tend to agree with Trustee Gallen on the fact that, it does give us the ability to adapt to the needs of the private lanes and what they need. I mean, there's some things in here that maybe kind of scratch my head, but that last bullet point really allows the ability to adapt to what the needs are. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I think the last thing we want to do is take over a street that's got a lot of issues that we may find out later on that we're going to be liable to have to fix. So, I mean, I know a lot of people have approached us. We have a lot of private lanes, but I think this is good that covers us. It's almost in legalese form, as I'm sure our legal counsel will agree with, that covers everything about that, what we have to do. And, no, we can't take over your street yet. So
I was going to make a joke about it already.
But no, I think it's good. I think it's important. I think it's something that in the past, because you hear it all the time. Well, why, like you said, why can't you plow our street, or why can't you fix this, or so? And that's the decision you make when you live on those streets. So I think it's good. I think it's thorough, and I think it's long overdue that we have something in place like this.
I just had a quick question. I'm sorry, Ed.
Go for it.
No, go ahead, because you haven't spoken yet, and I'll ask if you don't ask it. Sorry.
Well, first of all, I have a bridge to sell all of you, but the only thing that I have as a kind of question around it is the sidewalk streetlight side of it. Only because we do have some Northfield streets that don't have sidewalks and streetlights, right? So are we requiring more than existing streets that are already out there? And then I think some of our private lanes are going to have a tough time getting a sidewalk in, frankly, depending on what the setbacks are of the houses. But to Trustee Gallen's point at the end, I mean, we say we can waive certain clauses if we have to pull it in. But I just start thinking of some of the different roads around what some of these standards might not be there. Because my worry would be, does it hold people back from then possibly converting it in if they want to? But we kind of give ourselves a fail-safe at the end, so.
The way I would envision this happening is if somebody made a request, we would use whatever tables you've adopted and say, we require pavement thickness of at least X. Check if it meets it, if no, and then why. Or sidewalks, no, and here's why, because there's mature trees and the sidewalks would interfere with the trees. As a way for you to, as a board at the time, to look through the standards to see what's met, what's not, and make a decision whether you're like, you know what, that makes sense, and we can waive that one.
Or we could even put in a requirement saying you as the residents have to bring it to a certain standard, and then we go from there.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So this goes to my question of Rolling Ridge is a special service area, correct?
Yes.
Is this, would this be the guidance for that? Or is the special service area a totally different animal?
It is a totally different thing.
Okay.
The special service area is, and we'll continue with the sidewalk discussion, if a neighborhood said, you know what, we really, really want sidewalks, but we can't afford them right now, village, would you create a special service area here and basically put the sidewalks in, pay for it, and on our property taxes, bill us for the next 20 years to pay the sidewalks back?
Got it.
That was brought up when we brought this issue forward.
Right.
The first piece was we adopt our street. The second was if not, and we need to pave it or do something else, will you create special service areas?
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
And that reminds me, one of the questions that came up when we talked previously about special service areas was, do special service areas potentially negatively impact your credit rating? Because to do that, you're borrowing X $1,000s, tens of thousands of dollars for sidewalk. Does that count against the village overall if we were to go out for bonds? The answer I've gotten is no, it does not. In a general obligation bond, when you issue bonds, you pledge the full faith and credit of the village, meaning whatever revenue source, and if that revenue source isn't there, you back it up with ability to levy taxes on the properties to get those funds. A special service area is not a general obligation bond, so it is specific to those homes to pay that bill. It's their obligation, and it's not backed by the village. So the bond yield, the amounts, actually may be a little higher because the people lending money, buying the bonds, take on a little bit more risk because the full faith and credit of the village isn't behind it. It is property only. So that, I know that was one of the concerns we discussed before. That is not a concern.
One other quick note on special service areas, just while the board's talking about it. So there's likely going to be a scenario if someone does come forward with a street that doesn't meet all of these standards, that the conversation will turn to, all right, well, residents, you need to pay to bring the street up to code. The special service area could be another tool in that bag where they might not be able to front the money, but they'd be willing to support a special service area to put in the sidewalk or make sure the pavement is brought up to standard. So they'd pay for the initial investment in exchange for the dedication to the village, and then the village would maintain moving forward. So that might be another way to look at it as well.
But we also talked about the special service areas and limiting how many we would do in a, I don't know, 5-year period or whatever the number is. So is that something that we need to also document and put in place? Because this could drive more of those conversations, and we don't have a policy that I'm aware of.
We don't. It may be something for us to consider as we're moving forward. Right now, other than some existing that have been in place for a while, we haven't had a request for a while. I'm expecting one neighborhood possibly to ask for one during this coming summer. So let me run through that process and see just how intensive it is from us from a staff perspective. And then after that, I'll have an idea of what our capacity could be in a year.
Okay, great.
If I can say one thing, I just want to thank Patrick and all the staff. I know this isn't the most thrilling stuff of all the things you work on, but I really appreciate that you and the staff have put together, given us more parameters around things and really setting some standards. So I just appreciate the work you and your staff have done to just set some rules for the road, for lack of a better pun, I guess, for all of this stuff. So thank you for the time and effort by everybody on this.
Yeah, thank you.
And I like that it gives the residents clarity up front, so it's not ad hoc and unpredictable. I'd rather have a high bar set, and so they know what to meet. So thank you for doing that work.
Yeah. Okay, so this will come back to us after some more pencil sharpening and legal ease.
Yes, we'll decide whether this needs to be a policy adopted by the board, or if this is just a procedure that we can put in place administratively, put on the website and let people know, here's how it's done.
Okay, great. Is there anything else anybody on the board wants to talk about?
Yeah, quick question, Tracy. Patrick, what you alluded to as far as a policy or procedure, don't we want to, after we've done all this work, make this so that future boards, future everyone, future village managers, it's kind of in stone that this is kind of what we want to see happen so that it doesn't have that too much flexibility? Because I think this is a really good policy. We really want to make sure down the line that roads that want to come into, you know, being taken over, so to speak, by the village, that we have this in place.
It's possible. Once I start to get this in final form, I'll have a better idea of the best way to bring it forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the public before we adjourn? Sure.
Okay, thank you. Carol Ritchell, 811 Hap. So as far as the private roads, how many private roads do we have in Northfield?
I'm going to give you a ballpark, 46, 50-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, I kind of thought that, because in my mind, I'm thinking, when I go down Sunset Ridge, I mean, all the way from the north end to Winnetka Road. Okay, so then actually, you guys, how many of you live on private roads? You do? Yes? Tom, do you?
Yeah, I do. I don't know what the relevance of it is here, but.
Well, I mean, I just think it's interesting for us to know, because you folks may have, and I'm not suggesting that you would be partisan or anything, but you have a different perspective than people who don't live on private roads. Okay, so I just think it's very interesting that the number we're talking about is somewhere between 40 and 50. Now, grant you, I'm not saying everybody is going to want to avail themselves of having the village take over. This could be a lot. And I think actually Andrew had said at one meeting, and I may have this wrong, these people chose to live on these roads, okay? They chose to, you know, kind of like the people who back up to Teddy Kosov's right now, and they say, well, that was coded or designated a B1. That's what they, when they bought their homes, that's what they expected. And again, things change. I realize I'm going all over the place here, but I just think it's, okay, on the one hand, the village government exists to meet the needs of the members of the village. So I can, on the one hand, see that. On the other hand, it's like, does it benefit the village? Would it benefit the village to take over private roads, to be, you know, responsible for the snow, for everything that currently the village does on the roads that are not private, that are public? These are just a lot of questions that I have. I'm not trying to be nasty by bringing them up, but I just think that there are things that should be considered, if that makes any sense at all.
It does, and that's something that each constituted board will have to make a decision when a request comes forward, and they're going to weigh those pros and cons.
Yeah.
The advantage is that the board isn't required to do it at all. They aren't required to accept a lane for many of the reasons you stated. So
Okay.
it'll be a decision point for everybody at the time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gail.
Hi, Kim Orth, 1655 Orchard Lane. So I wanted to go back to sidewalks for a minute.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Yeah, I can. I'm not sure where the East Frontage Road sidewalks came in the priorities. I know it was lower down. It's a huge project, obviously. But I was wondering where it's at right now, because it's a safe passage route for New Trier and Loyola Academy. And it's also a cut-through, and it's got a park. And that park is well-traveled. There's a lot of kids that go in and out of that park. So there are no sidewalks on either side. I'm sure Tom and Matt, you were on the committee, right? Yeah, you're well aware of the whole situation over there. Because no one really lives over there except Charlie and I, you probably aren't aware of the traffic that goes on every day. People literally are going 50 and 55 miles an hour down Frontage Road. One of the problems is there's no sidewalk. So, you know, Lagoon, at least people have to stop every block, so it does slow them down. Here, it is like a raceway. It's not just the kids, it's the parents. Everybody is racing down. So, given all that, I just kind of wanted to know, I know it's huge, it's a county road. I don't know what we would be responsible for and what the county would be responsible for, but I just kind of wanted to get a feel of where it might be at right now.
It's on the list for the sidewalk committee plan. As I'm putting the capital plan together, I'm looking at how much money we may have available and trying to slot in projects that may fit. I'm also keeping in mind the fact that the states could be replacing the bridge over Winnetka, and we're going to have a lot more people walking that can't cross the Edens by that bridge. So I'm thinking about all those priorities as we put a plan forward to the board next month about the capital improvement plan.
So what is the responsibility of the county on this and our responsibility? I'm just
Zero. County's feeling is they don't need a sidewalk. It's for the locality. So if we want it, we can go through the permit process and try to put it in, but unless we get a grant from them, they're not going to fund it.
So even though it's like a safe passageway for school, I mean, granted, I'm completely ignorant on this issue as far as who pays for what.
So when Trustee Fowler and I first got on the board, 7 years ago almost, that was one of the first things that we looked at, was the feasibility and the doability of sidewalks, because we were on the Safe Routes to School group.
Yeah.
And we were out there with Patrick Engineering, and there was a lot of obstacles, Kim. And I think, Melissa, at one point, we were even looking at the west frontage, right, by New Trier. And the problem is with the county. Because it's their right-of-way, it's their roadway, and it's their way. And I think we can look at the projects like the Lagoon Lake Crossing that the board approved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of red tape. And I know we were hopeful when we did the first walk out there that it was going to be something like, we want to get this done now. And 7 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, Kim, it's on the list, for sure. And I think it's, as you said, it's prioritizing. And gosh, wouldn't it be great if you could get a sound barrier over there? And then as part of that, work with IDOT to potentially carve out a sidewalk as part of that. Like, that would be great. But this isn't going to happen overnight. Like, there are multiple, groups that we've got to work with.
Is there any way we can put pressure on Scott Britton? I mean, just the fact that it services so many schools and there's a park. Like, I can't believe the county would just bury their head on this. I'm sure they can, and they do. But there's got to be something that can draw their attention to it. I don't know.
We see it as a priority.
Yeah.
Like you do. And so it's on the list, and if that opportunity presents itself, I know everyone, well, I don't know everyone, I think we'd all be supportive of it.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yep.
Sure.
Anyone else? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll see you back here at 7 o'clock.